Are we supposed to hear jelly?
I don't hear anything.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Grenades and Horseshoes, where we Hey everyone, and welcome to Grenades and Horseshoes, where we strive to bring good times, good feels, and general shenanigans every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Hi there. It is Grenades and Horseshoes yet again. And this is episode 36. Can you believe it? I am Mark Square, as I am. Yuna's like, yes, it's been a long-ass road.
Well, it's a year older than me now.
A long road to 36.
Yeah, the show's is more weeks old than Yuna is years old.
Yeah.
And this is Yuna Lala here.
Hi, everyone.
And Grey Ghost
Good
here.
evening, everybody.
And I have a very serious question to ask you. I lied.
Ooh.
It's not serious. It's never serious.
Serious business.
Actually, it is a serious question. If I could do this, I would. Well, let me just. You can make any animal the size of a horse and ride it. Which animal do you pick and why?
Oh man, any animal you can transform into the size of a horse and you can ride it?
Yeah. Which one do you pick?
Ooh.
So I did this. Jez in the chat says rabbit.
A
I
rabbit.
like that. It's gonna be.
Would it
you ride
change to the
somebody.
temperament of a horse, or does it retain its temperament? Like, is it? Are you going to be able to control this animal?
It says you can ride it, so I think
know.
Okay.
yes, you would be able to.
I know exactly what I would pick.
Okay.
Bearded dragon from Runbow. Let's hear what Yuna would be.
Sugar glider. Yeah, it's adorable. It's a family animal. It likes to do packs, and you're its pack master. And it glides through the trees. Imagine how far he could go with his little spongy arms.
That's true. So
Yeah.
he could run and glide. I'd be down for that. That's as close to flying as I could possibly get.
unless you pick something that can
Unless you pick a
actually
bird. But then birds don't run fast. They're just like waddled.
And to stay true to the question itself, like picking something like an eagle would be awesome, but I don't think that the question itself doesn't say that you'd be able to fly on the eagle. The eagle would just have to run with you riding on its back.
It just says ride it.
It just says ride. So
yeah,
I would
whatever
probably
does
take
it.
my own family dog, Otto, right? My best buddy in the whole world. And he would be, he'd be my mode of transport. We would bond just like, the the old westerns with your horse. Otto would be my my companion.
Imagine how much hair you would shed.
Yes.
Some big dog poops.
Yeah, you would take off in a puff of hair.
Yep. That is very
You rode
true.
away. So I was
Have that big braids.
yeah. Ooh, yeah, you could have some braids on there. What would a dog's saddle look like? I mean, like, would it look the same as a horse
Probably just
saddle?
a
I don't
normal
think.
saddle. I'd have to imagine.
Probably. I mean, they make dog saddles for like monkeys that ride dogs.
What
That should not be a thing, by the way. We'll have the link in the show notes, apparently.
It's just something that goes on. No big deal. Just monkeys that ride dogs.
Riding a
You can find them on Pinterest. What? What's the deal?
Man, I love Pinterest. So if we're saying you can't fly, because my assumption was if the thing's flying and you're riding it, you're flying too, right?
Yeah.
So, but if you can't fly, then I've actually already made this decision a long time ago, and I chose a giant panda.
A long time ago. I love how this has been like just weighing on your mind for years now.
It has. Well, I had an art show that was called Apocalypse Meow. And it was all about, the end of everything. And so I did a self-portrait of me riding a giant panda away from a burning city. And I chose giant.
Getaway ever.
I know, yeah. Go. There's no hurry. But I was also texting while riding him. Yeah. But
giant pandas just pandas in general are pretty clumsy, though, Mark. I mean, you're going to take a few tumbles there.
Tumbles. Well, no, but it'd be cozy tumbles. And Jess is saying, giant. That's true.
They're big already.
That's true. Well, what my idea was that it's kind of like, it's like a sensible SUV. You could put some stuff on the back. You could have some extra luggage area and that kind of thing.
Pretty good safety ratings, right? I'd have to imagine.
High visibility, the black and white alternating. Like it's kind of like it's got the coloring of kind of like an Audi RX-8. You got like black and white stripes. Yeah. So I was into it. Jez says that giant pandas are already the horses. But I can't ride them right now, Jez. It's part of the wish. It's part of the wish.
Nice. So Gray's going to ride a giant dog and have that piece of his life fulfilled that is missing right now with that companionship. Mark is going to ride a giant panda, and Yuna is going to be on a giant... what was it?
Glider.
Sugar glider.
Sugar glider. Have you never seen a sugar glider?
No, I know what it was, but it's like a miniature flying squirrel-like thing. I do know what they are. But,
and you have to keep them in pairs, otherwise they get sad and die.
Oh, geez.
Just looking at the fan art that's going to come out of this segment. That's what I'm really looking forward to.
All right, well, let's go on to our first segment of the night.
Week in Gaming.
Thanks, Jelly, for recording those. Yeah, that was the club mix.
Yes, it was.
If we ever see Jelly in real life, he don't know what grinding he's in for. What about you? What about you, Gray? What was your week in gaming like?
So, highlight of the week was Saturday night finishing God of War at 1 a.m. It was a fantastic experience. The story through and through. One of those games that had a long enough story. Probably took me 25 to 30 hours because I did a fair bit of side quest and exploring. But still was left there going, man, I wish this game was longer. I still have some things left to do in the game, but I wanted to get it wrapped up because I needed to spend more time diving in, leveling up in Destiny. So wanted to kind of close the book on God of War. Once that we kind of finish this life cycle of Warmind with Destiny, I'm going to go back and get all the Valkyries, get all the other elements, the side quests completed, because it is such a fantastic experience. And I really hope that they come down the pipeline here with some solid DLC for that game. It really deserves it. I would certainly pay for added content, especially substantial content, meaningful content. And based on what Santa Monica Studios came out with the first time around, I have to imagine that they could come up with really good quality content as DLC for the game. So then jumping into Destiny, you know, playing more Destiny in this past week than I probably have in the past 2 months, 3 months, easy. The game's in a you know, it's not in the best spot in the world, but it's in a good spot. It's in a decent spot. I think that they're making moves in the right direction, and there's definitely enough in the game to go after, to hunt for, to grind for, that it keeps me engaged, makes me want to go back and keep playing the game. I know we're going to talk about Destiny in more detail as we talk about your guys' week in gaming, so I'm going to kind of leave it there. We'll get into some of the things that we've actually done, but I'll kind of leave it at this in saying that it's really nice to see some of the elements that worked really well in Destiny 1, especially when you think of endgame grind related to the Taken King and how they kind of wove in a good life cycle after Taken King. You know, I'm starting to feel that with Warmind. I feel like some of those same things I would grind for with the Taken King, I have that same kind of drive to grind for now with Warmind.
Yep.
Outside of that, though, those were the main 2 games that I played this week. Not a ton outside of those 2. I'll go ahead and throw it to Yuna. What did you play this week?
I really only played 1 game this week, and that is Destiny. And I'm okay with that. I'm actually really pleased with what they've done with the expansion. I'm pleased with a lot of the stuff that I've been getting to drop. I got, seriously, I logged into the game and I immediately got the Masterwork upgrade for my Crimson, which is my favorite gun anyways. So
have you got the Catalyst yet?
Yeah, I got it right away.
Okay.
Yep. It was seriously, I logged in and I got it on the first mission.
No, he means did you power it up? I think
power up? I'm almost done with it. I'm actually, because those ones are headshots, and I get the headshots fairly frequently with that. I haven't used it exclusively because I've been trying out some new stuff, but I'm almost done.
Are you saying that just to let our competition for the Crucible Podcast Showdown shake in their boots? Because you get headshots fairly frequly. You know, it's not too hard to get those 3 triple tap headshots with Crimson from Unilateral.
Well, we'll see. I honestly haven't done a lot of PvP, to be totally honest, and I definitely need to do some practicing before that, because I need to put my money where my mouth is. And I don't. And we're going against Dad Tails. That's gonna be.
Yeah, we could get knocked out early.
Round. Yeah.
So just so you guys.
No, we're gonna knock them out.
Well, I know we're gonna get knocked out. Barbecue regularly gets chicken dinners in Fortnite. By the way, I mean, you put us against. He is so good at games. Yep. It's unreal. So yeah, we got to rely on Justin. You know. Hope he blocks all BBQ's.
We'll be playing elimination, and Justin will be the 5 deaths in the round. It's just everybody hiding on our team or looking just for Justin and Bad Tails. We love you, Justin, by the way.
I'd from barbecue for sure. But yeah, just so in case you guys haven't been playing we haven't, this Catalyst thing is interesting. Not all the exotics have it, but some of them, and it drops, and it's like a quest, and once you fulfill it, it upgrades your exotic into a masterwork so that it makes orbs on multi-kills just like the legendaries do. Now, some of them are much more difficult than others to get. I mean, some of them only drop from strikes, and strikes right now are brutal. I mean, it's really hard at current power
strikes
levels.
Are really hard right now.
Yep,
I mean, it's good. You feel like you've accomplished something when you finish the strike, but at what are we at? 345? I think our average fireteam light level is 345. Yeah. And those strikes, honestly, I'm not complaining. It feels good to be challenged in those strikes. It kind of stinks when you wipe, and you wipe when it's close, and you've been working really hard, but you just didn't execute. But honestly, that's what this game's about, right? It's about trying your ability, pushing to be better than what you are. And for too long, guys, we have been able to just cruise through this content without feeling challenged. Yeah. I mean, it feels good. It feels good to be challenged.
It does. It felt good, except for the 5 seconds after we wiped the other night.
Yeah,
we've been fighting him for 15 minutes. It felt like.
Oh yeah, it was pretty bad. At least we didn't go back to orbit though. We didn't have to start over, which actually happened to Goda and I twice when that was the nightfall. We wiped at the boss and went all the way back on the prestige.
So this
nightfall.
is that strike from Curse of Osiris that we're speaking about. And again, it was a lot of fun, but I would say we should be considered capable players at this point in our Destiny tenure. And I mean, it took us just under an hour to do one heroic strike at our current light level. This is going to change though. I mean, once we get, up to higher light, 360, 370, 380 light, we'll get back to where it's just kind of cruising through it. But we have to be careful. We have to be strategic. We have to stack our supers appropriately and kind of change our loadouts. I mean, we had to go through that encounter and change our loadouts several times. I actually am enjoying this kind of part of the game, even though it makes me feel bad as a player. It makes me enjoy the game more.
Yeah, I would. Go ahead, Yuna. Sorry, it's your go.
And I was going to say, I've actually, as far as like drops go, I actually feel like I've been doing pretty well. I haven't gotten a whole lot of stuff up, but I've got a catalyst for Vigilance Wing too.
Oh, nice.
So I got those like pretty much like within a day of each other. So,
excellent.
So I mean, I know some people haven't gotten any yet, which is, a little weird, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only one that I got to drop was the one for Crimson as well. I am not as accurate as Yunalala, so I'm not hitting those headshots as much. So it's been a little bit of a slow grind, but honestly, I switched. I had to switch to the Aikelios, and for the longest time, so I'm working on the Sleeper Stimulant quest, where you get that Aikelios hand cannon, which is fantastic. Mine happened to drop Masterworked, so it's even a little bit extra stacked on top of that, and I just it's a good solid hand cannon to use. I love that it's new and that it has the Warmind theme to it, so I want to use it. I didn't really get that to complete that Sleeper Stimulant quest, you don't actually have to use the Aikelios hand cannon. You just have to have it on your person. So for much of these encounters, I wasn't using Crimson when I probably should have. I was using the Aikelios, and so it's been a little bit slower. But
you have to have it equipped. You have to have it equipped, right? But not.
It has to be on your it has to be in that energy slot as the active weapon, but it doesn't have to actually get the kills.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll talk about my week in gaming. It is also Destiny related. We played a lot of that. And one of my favorite things about Destiny 1 was the fact that you could change your loadout and you could think and strategize. And there were encounters that were hard enough that made you do that. And now that's back, right? Like even the escalation protocol, like I think the people that we know, Lawn Boy and Dakota and Jelly, they're the highest light people we know, highest power level people. And they've only got up to the third. They've not got past the third round of, and we've got up to the second. Like we've only got past one round and died on the second one. And after we died the first time, we were all like, okay, I switched to Nighthawk, and then you stayed on Tether, and like you start making these strategies, like working as a team, because I really think that's what's been missing in Destiny 2. You don't actually feel like so much that you're working as a team. You feel like you're just shooting things together mindlessly. Yeah, and that's the reason that all of the challenges that I always made in Destiny 1, what the point was to have a great time, and also to make it where you have to talk and you have to strategize. Like, okay, we can only use shotguns to down Crota. What are we gonna do? Like, how do we do it? You know what I mean? Like, and everybody's coming up with plans and that kind of stuff. So that's what I like about this level of difficulty. And let's see, what else? Week in gaming, Destiny, and then I have been trying to climb the Hearthstone rank ladder, and I was cruising along fine up until like rank 18. It counts down from 25 to 1 being the best rank, and all of a sudden I hit a brick wall and I started losing, and I went all the way back to like 20, and so it's really it hurts. So it's not a cakewalk. It's difficult.
We've been talking a lot about the ranked, more competitive Hearthstone play. So what do you think flipped the switch on you? Did it happen to be that the deck that you were using was just no longer a viable deck?
I think so. I think that I play mage, and it's not actually considered to be a top tier deck. Any mage deck, it's just not considered to be competitive, and you can it's just so aggressive that it takes people off guard, and I think that worked at lower levels and against opponents that maybe weren't on their way to the top. Another thing to consider too is that people who are really into the game want to climb to rank 1, and a lot of times they don't even start till later in the month. Like Tavern Brawl has been a thing at the beginning of the month. There's all this other stuff going on. I think what happened was I was started earlier than the average player trying to climb to rank 1. And then I think what happened was when I started losing, I think all of the talented players just happened to be on the same tier I was at the time. They were all on their way to rank 1, and I'm just facing one after the other, and I'm just getting slapped down. I mean, because I could tell that they had played a lot, because a lot of the people would have like different card backs that I'd never seen, and they would have like golden heroes and like all this different, fancier stuff that they're playing with, that tells me that, okay, not only do these guys have all the best cards, they've been playing a long time, because they've got card backs you could only get when you were, completed events in 2014 and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's been fun, and I'm starting to have a little more success now, and built back to, I think I'm back to the very top of 19. I'm almost back to 18 again. So anyway, great times.
Yeah, that's that is interesting to see, and as a side of Hearthstone that I'm interested in getting more involved with, but I've got to unlock more cards. I mean, I'm just so early in my situation. I'm the guy that I'm going to look online to find what are viable decks. I'm going to replicate that deck and then try to play around with it to put my own spin on it. But I want to get a good feeling for what already works, what is already considered competitive, before I go out and try to figure out a new way to make that work even better. But where I stand today, if I'm not willing to throw a bunch of money just right at Blizzard, I'm not going to be able to have those cards just within my catalog. So I've got a bit of work to do, but that is interesting. Hearthstone, it is a very fun game. It's a new thing for me, but I've really been enjoying learning the ropes of it. Even though, Mark, if you ever need to feel like, if you ever get through those ranked matches and you're like, man, I'm just getting slapped around, this is not fun, just call me up. If you need an emotional support boost of your ability, give me a call. I'll make you feel pretty good about yourself.
I keep getting you to try to borrow my decks, right? Like if you're playing casually with your friend, they can borrow a deck from you.
Yeah, but I've got a pretty good idea of where those decks have been, Mark Square, and I don't know that I want to touch them with my bare hands.
Are we going back down to the Vaseline episode?
Yes, exactly. These are sticky. Why are these cards sticky? They're digital. I don't understand. They're digital.
I don't understand. It's tacky.
Got to check that browser history. All right. I want to circle back around and talk about a few things with Destiny, certainly things that they have done well. And maybe the first thing that we should discuss just in detail, or a little bit of detail, our private matches have launched. They've launched successfully. Actually, during the taping of the show, Bungie has challenged our friends over at Destiny Community Podcast to a private Crucible match, and that is streaming over there. So the private match is deployed without issue. We're glad to see that. And we're taking that into our own little miniature tournament with every and any gaming/Destiny themed podcast that wants to, with an event that we're holding on June 9th and June 10th called the Crucible Podcast Showdown. We've got about 20 podcasts that have signed up. The brackets are going to continue to grow as we get more podcasts to sign up. And in the end, after the weekend, there's only going to be one winner to kind of, hold all the credit. But we've got a lot of friends of the show, a lot of new faces. But this is going to be, guys, I really think this is going to be the single-handed largest collaboration between all Destiny podcasts. I can't think of another thing that really brought all these different hosts together. And I tweeted out this morning, it'll be very funny to see if some of these podcast hosts can wield their Crucible weapons nearly as well as they do a microphone. I get the impression they may not.
Well, there's a lot of smack talk going around, and it's so funny because it's not like actually mean. Everything is tongue in cheek, and it's just for funsies. It's not for getting anyone riled up. But It's going to be so much fun. I'm really excited.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's going to be more information going out, obviously. All these podcasts are going to be talking about, trying to kind of get their fan base involved. We're going to do it for charity. So any proceeds that are raised are going to go to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Kind of the niche charity, really, for our Destiny community. It seems like we do typically rally behind St. Jude's Children's Hospital. So we're going to piggyback on that as well and try to raise some funds for them. We're going to see how these podcast hosts do in that tournament setting. And ultimately, the idea is really to bring this community closer together. The podcast community is kind of fragmented, and we haven't really had a lot of collaboration between shows, little kind of segments, but nothing to this scale. And we wouldn't be able to do it if we didn't have private matches in the game. So, good job, Destiny, circling around with update 1.2.0 with Warmind. We now can do activities like this. So it's certainly one positive aspect to the things that came into the game with Warmind. The other thing that I want to talk about with what's going on with Warmind is the quests and the secret quests, the exotic weapons, the things that we're doing that are prolonging the life cycle of Destiny's endgame right now with Warmind. So for me personally, right, I'm working on the Sleeper Stimulant quest, and there's enough grind to it that this isn't something that I was personally able to knock out just over the weekend. It's taking me some time. I'm at that step now with the Nightfall Strikes, the heroic ones, to get those completed. And at my light level, it takes time. It takes work. Bungie has a little problem on their hands. Right now, the Nightfall heroic strikes are bugged a little bit, that they're not always counting towards the Sleeper Stimulant quest, and they're not always counting towards your, gosh, help me, what's the name? Milestone. Right? They're not always counting towards your milestone. So there's something going on. I'm sure we'll see it in the update this week in Bungie on Thursday, and we'll get an idea of what they're doing to kind of fix that. But those 5 heroic strikes might actually turn into 7 to 8 heroic strikes to get it to actually work. But how cool is it to have Sleeper back? Like, I'm so excited to have Sleeper back in my hands.
I'm so excited to have it for the first time.
Yeah, Yuna, who did not get it in Destiny 1, even though it was one of those essential weapons, I would say essential weapons, during the early Taken King raid cycle. Like, when Taken King launched, and it was a very difficult raid, certainly very difficult, Sleeper Stimulant was one of those weapons, when you got it, made that raid encounter significantly easier. You could 1 or 2 shot the ogres during that last encounter. Being able to stagger Oryx was way easier. All those kind of things helped in that encounter. And obviously, Yuna, you didn't get to experience some of those pieces. I'm curious to see what Sleeper does in some of these future encounters. I know we can play with it now in the Prestige Raid, but when the Prestige Raid layers drop in July, I'm curious to see how Sleeper is going to play into the meta of running those raid layers. Mark, where are you on your journey for Sleeper Stimulant?
I don't really pay attention. I don't really care if I get it or not. So I think.
Did you have it in Destiny 1?
I did. Yeah, I didn't care for it. The one thing I did like about it is that it could accidentally kill you. I thought, I just wanted
ricochet back in your face.
Yeah, it could ricochet and could kill you. So it was kind of like a meme weapon in that way. It was great. I mean, it was really good. It did tons of damage, but I like to stay so mobile that I don't want a power weapon that I have to hold the trigger down. Yeah. So, which fusion rifle you can still use that way. You can kind of jump around and kind of like spray, use your mobility and still fire it. But a sleeper isn't necessarily that way. But yeah, I'm going to try. I think the last time I checked, I needed to headshot cabals more, which that's the first step.
Yeah,
I know, and it's so satisfying.
You had to do it on Mars. Grapes. I kind of screwed that up because other people wanted to run some strikes and stuff, and I'm like, this is not working. This is not counting up.
Oh, it has to be specifically in Patrol.
It's got to be on Mars.
Yeah.
So we got exotic weapons to chase as part of the end game, and it's a significant number of steps that you have to do in order to acquire these weapons. Have you guys been off shooting those little glowy relics and trying to unlock the little nodes across the map? Have you done that?
Just a little bit. So I know there's guides and everything out there, but I like I'm a super completionist, but I like finding things on my own until I reach a wall where I just definitely can't find them anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to go through and find them without actually like looking at a website or anything. Like if I'm with you guys and we happen to be doing something and it's like, oh hey, there's something over here. Okay, that's fine. But like I'm not gonna go out of my way to, look up locations.
Right.
Longboy can remember where they all are. It's ridiculous. He's like, oh, there's one here, but he can't even see them because he shot them all already.
Yeah.
But
that's
like
certainly a good
geckos.
little promo or shout out for our friend SDF Longboy on PS4. He's a super helpful guy, one of the Guardian 1 guys, always willing to help out literally anybody. Either message us on Twitter, message Longboy on Twitter. We can get you hooked up. If you want really somebody as a guide to go and show you where these things are, it is impressive. It is impressive, his memory on where these things are. I can't remember where anything is. Even after Jelly shows me it, he's like, oh, it's just over by that other one that we did just 2 seconds ago. Yeah, I have no idea what he's talking about.
Same.
Yeah.
I was trying to show Darren some that where, because he was like one away from getting the sword. And I was like, oh, yeah, just yesterday, Longboy was showing me where these were at. And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't remember. I can't remember. I mean, like,
so he's definitely a good resource. And if you want some help, I'm sure that he'd be willing to help people out with that.
Yeah, and he's recruiting for his clan, Sit Down Fool. SDF, that's what it stands for. I thought he was from San Diego, Florida, because I'm into geography.
Jeez, that's a terrible joke.
I know.
that's like not even like dad joke worthy. That's just like...
It's I started drinking at 3 this afternoon joke.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Exactly.
By the way, I did
go ahead, Yuna.
snipe that. I did snipe that thing from across the
oh my god! I shot
the bridge. I
45
sniped it. Yes, and I took a video. I just need to get it up.
One
I
rocket.
sniped it.
They put some of these things, these relics that you have to shoot, in some very difficult spaces just to find. Like that one in particular. If you don't know what you're looking for, this is just a tiny little flashing glint on the screen. The fact that people found it, I presume that people are going to find these things. They did a good balance between the ones that were obvious and the ones that aren't obvious. I still have about 10 to go, but the sword that you get when you hit, I believe it's 35, looks fantastic. That's the other thing, is that the rewards for them are worth the effort to go and get them. That's something that hasn't always been the case with the Destiny 2 endgame. So the reward, the loot at the end, is equitable for the time that you invest to get to it. And I feel that way about Sleeper as well. I think it is. I'm hoping that it really is that a very strong, powerful weapon that can do more damage in a short amount of time than any other weapon on the map. Like that's where Sleeper in Destiny 1 had its place. If you only had like 5 to 10 seconds to do damage on something, Sleeper was the weapon that was going to get the most DPS within that time threshold. If you had 30 seconds, it was Black Spindle. You could, with the fact that you wouldn't have to reload the weapon if you had a precision shot. If you could sequence those out, you could actually do more DPS than if you were using Sleeper and having to reload the weapon every time over those 30 seconds. So that's the kind of PvE metagame that I'm really interested in developing in Destiny 2. And I never had a great feeling about Destiny 2's PvE metagame prior to Warmind coming out.
Yep. And they're saying, just one last thing, Darcy is actually ahead on DPS over Sleeper. So
really?
the buff they've done to that exotic sniper actually makes it do more DPS than the Sleeper. So, wow, I'm off the hook. I'm putting that hand cannon
I actually
away.
find that a little disappointing. I had a little sidebar about linear fusion rifles and Sleeper and how they're going to do it. There's something about this being a Warmind weapon that had to charge up and delivered just an exceptional amount of power into the enemy. A sniper rifle shouldn't necessarily do that, right? This should be in its own category. I think it should be outside of like rocket launchers or things like that. It should be the highest DPS weapon in that kind of meta.
But do you know how it works? Like you have to aim down sights. It gets damage bonus the longer you're aiming down sights.
So at least Darcy?
It being Darcy, yeah.
Okay.
So you do it has a barrier to entry that's not am I right about that, chat? But yeah, so it's not just like you can just like quick scope and start firing away. I think there's there's stuff going on your scope and all that kind of stuff too, to the point where if it's the one the correct one I'm thinking of, you can aim down sights for a long time in Crucible and then one shot body shot people.
Oh,
wow.
Was that a Destiny 1 thing or just a Destiny 2 thing?
No, Darcy was an N1. Yeah, that's
it wasn't N1. Okay.
No.
Yeah, and I haven't had it drop yet, so I haven't been able to play around with it. Okay, last thing that I wanted to mention is, they continue to talk about at the launch of year 2 weapon randomization. I am really looking forward to what this is going to be. This is going to make the end game of Destiny. Outside of that, they mentioned this thing, right, that they're gonna be launching called Crucible Labs today. What do you guys know about Crucible Labs?
Nothing.
Okay. So basically, as they do testing and tweaking in the Crucible, you can kind of do what I'm hoping is an opt-in, where you can get a behind the scenes. This is what they talk about here from Derek Carroll, the design lead. A behind the scenes and louder voice in the creative process. It's going to give you early access to experimental PvP content. Get feedback before they launch it into live. So, they mentioned it on the roadmap. It doesn't launch until May 29th. And then maybe we get more details on what that means. Like, is this going to be in the directory that you can go into Crucible Labs, experience what this is, provide feedback, and then bounce out and go into the normal playlist? Or do you have to go onto Bungie.net and opt in to get access to it? We don't really know. They haven't said yet. But we will get to see some of the things that they're testing. And ultimately, what I'm happy about is the community gets to provide lots of feedback on how these things perform. And if I know this community, what they're going to be aiming for is fun, right? Not balance, not necessarily tournament equitable type play. They want to go in and have a fun game mode to experience. And so I think that's the feedback they're going to get a lot of is, hey, we totally screwed up Graviton Forfeit. It's now OP. It's crazy fun to use. It's not balanced at all. Let's do this. This is going to be, people are enjoying doing this. And so I'm curious to see how that kind of works out with this whole Crucible Labs. I think it is a positive move because I think that the community is going to be asking for things that are fun, not necessarily things that are balanced. What are your thoughts?
Agreed. It's kind of a strange. To me, it seems like it's this is the first I've heard of it, by the way, but it feels like it's a reskin of a casual Crucible playlist. Like it almost just seems like it should just be an unranked thing. So like right now,
I think it will be unranked. It's
the Valor and the what's the other one? Glory, right? It's the two, and they count up and down in different ways, and it's like they need a playlist that's separate from that to test things out. But sure. I think marketing it as Crucible Labs, where they people have the idea that they're listening and they're wanting feedback, is a good idea. I think it'll get more people involved, but I think it's kind of a little bit of a trick. It's like, just call it what it is. It's a casual playlist that people aren't going to be upset for, not climbing the ranks in the other ranked playlists, which is fine. I mean, like, I like that there's a playlist like that, but I resent being tricked into thinking I'm helping them design the game when actually what it is a casual, non-ranked Crucible playlist, which they should just call it that, right?
Well, I think that the big difference is that they're going to be, the weapons will likely perform differently in Crucible Labs than they're going to in the other playlists.
Yeah, so essentially what they're going to be doing is public test realms. So we see this a lot with World of Warcraft, where what they'll do is they need to make changes to the classes and to the class abilities and the spells and everything. But in order to get a really big sample size, they open up what's called PTR, so player test realms, and you can opt in, and anyone can opt in, and you go in. There's different kinds. They can either remove over your character, or sometimes they only want to test it with specific builds, so they'll only have specific builds available. You go in, you play. If there's something that you don't like, you let them know. If there's something broken, you let them know. If there's something you really like, you let them know. And that way they get the feedback, and they get the kind of the player experience from a much larger sample size than they would with in-house testing.
Okay.
So.
All right. I'm slowly being sold. So what is the gear that he's talking about? Do you get access to gear? Do you think it'll be like that? Like they'll like be a picked loadout or?
No, I don't think that it'll necessarily be like that. I think that you will take your Guardian in. I mean, we'll find out because they literally just kind of gave us an indicator of what this is going to look like. It says access to experimental PvP content. So what that makes me think of is different game modes potentially, different number of players within a game mode. So maybe they're going to do, hey, this weekend in labs we're going to run Supremacy, but we're going to do 6v6 for Supremacy and see how it plays. I think it's going to be those kind of things, as well as we'll see. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if they actually test out weapon balance updates as well in this environment. So maybe those guns will perform differently, but certainly it's going to be different PvP game modes or game modes that are performing differently in those labs.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sold. I'm in. All right. I'm glad.
And I hope they do it as like a playlist. I hope they do it where we want to test something specific. So, Crucible Labs for this week, we are doing, Mayhem, Rumble, but we're going to do it with 12 people on the map or something like that.
Right. Or SMGs only. Oh, man. I'm hoping.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know. I can't get into that gun type.
Okay. Right. Hand cannon, Crimsons only.
Okay. So that kind of wraps up some of our Destiny discussion. We're going to move right along into our next segment, which we like to call
The Buzz.
I will never not laugh at that. You guys realize you're in for like a lifetime of laughter.
I'd make a little mark to put it out every time.
Okay, so this
wait, I did it out of order. I'm going to cut all this out.
Yeah,
so,
I think either he's going to skip the news desk. That was the buzz.
I feel like
you got that right. So
I just thought you were skipping news. I was
not. I'd actually kind of forgotten that we didn't do news. So we're going to move right along to our next segment, which we call
The News Desk.
Okay, so the news desk. So we got a smattering of articles this week that, have caught my attention. The first one being Monster Hunter movie is on its way, and it will be starring Mila Jovovich, and it's going to be directed by the guy that did the Resident Evil movies. Now,
God. Those were awful.
They were not very good movies, and they actually had more plot to them from a source material perspective. Resident Evil has a bigger plot than Monster Hunter does, right? Like, does Monster Hunter, Lomboy, correct us in the chat, does Monster Hunter have that strong of a plot? I never got that impression.
I mean, it does have at least the Monster Hunter world has a pretty good pretty good plot you can follow and everything. And it is a good world to create a story in. However, major concerns with what they're going to be doing with this movie. So in 2016, Paul W.S. Anderson had a synopsis of a concept he had for a live action version of it. And this comes to us from Kotaku. And so I'm going to read out this synopsis and pray that this is not what it turns out to be. So here's the concept. An ordinary man in a dead-end job discovers that he's actually the descendant of an ancient hero. He must travel to a mystical world to train to become a monster hunter before the mythical creatures from that world destroy ours.
That sounds awesome.
Oh, Jesus.
It sounds a little done. I mean, the trope has been done, but I guess if it's good acting, good writing, good dialogue, good visual effects, it's worth my movie ticket to go see. The issue is that because this is like a Resident Evil, is what our reference is to the quality of the work that this team is going to be making. This hopefully it doesn't get relegated to straight to DVD, but we'll see. And it's supposed to be a guy, right? So the Mila Jankovic character isn't even going to be the lead role in it?
Jankovic.
What's your
name? Jovovich.
Djokovic? Mila Djokovic?
You're doing it on purpose.
It's a janky. They're janky movies. That's what I'm getting caught up on.
I mean, like, there was always something about the Resident Evil movies that were like guilty pleasures because they're like sometimes things are just like so bad that it's good, but like, man, I really hope they don't run with that concept. Like, I will not go see that movie for sure.
I will let you know how it is.
Mark's sold. He's ready to go.
Sold.
Okay. So coming to theaters, do they know? Did they announce is it in production? Probably not. They just did casting.
Let me see. I don't believe it's in production yet. They just announced the casting this week.
That's the other thing that's probably not going to work in their favor is they're probably going to move too quickly to get this thing out because they do not want to lose the Monster Hunter hype. I mean, they're already behind. They should have had this somewhat ready to launch while Monster Hunter was the game to play. And right now it's still a popular game, but it doesn't have the popularity that it had when it launched.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see as that comes along. So my other story for the week brings us back to Destiny. And I'm sure anyone that's been playing Destiny this week has known that the Destiny 2 had a puzzle built right inside that led people to an actual treasure in upstate New York where Vicarious Visions have their headquarters. So this is probably one of the coolest things that I'm going to see in video games anytime soon, especially with Destiny. So it started off as a symbol within Rasputin's bunker. And I had already seen the symbol, but what had happened was, they did a lot of crowdsourcing on Reddit, and what they figured out was that they had this beautiful message sent that they were able to translate and figure out what it is. And at the very end, it had 2 numbers, and it turns out to be longitude and latitude. So someone actually went there, and what they found was a cache of Destiny stuff in the woods, which is just like the coolest thing ever. And it had a life-size Valkyrie model. Only 3 of them exist in the entire world, and that's one of them. And then they had another lore fragment in there that actually dropped a bomb about who the stranger has been this whole time.
Stranger was?
Oh,
yep.
I was like, they put them coordinates to a bomb? This is awful.
No. A news bomb, an info bomb.
Yeah. Okay.
And then everybody died. That's the end of the story, Mark.
End of story.
He just died.
Why did you say this is awesome?
And then they had just like a cache of there was like 50 commemorative coins, and just a request that you just take one so other people that go there can have a souvenir too.
Yeah, these gold coins.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sure that the first person did take the Valkyrie, the real life. I don't know. Did Impact Props make the Valkyrie? Did they announce who it was produced by?
I don't know. I didn't look into that.
They do a lot of the really high quality Destiny prop material, but I did not see in the articles that were published who the manufacturer of the Valkyrie was. Some things about this that were very interesting. For one, the code itself was on one of the monitors in the Warmind. It had to go through 3 different cipher decodings, which was, I mean, way smarter than I am, right? That somebody's going to actually figure out how this works.
Oh, man.
Even then, you had to take the code, and I don't even know how they got these things figured out. Like, remove the second A from every line of this code. Remove the third B. Like, there was these crazy things they had to do to manipulate the data to make it work. Then, right, the only part about this that made me feel a little tinge of jealousy. I'm already realizing I'm not near smart enough to figure this out. But you had to be in the right place to take advantage of this opportunity. You had to be in upstate New York. Even if you knew the latitude and longitude, you would have to get there just to check out, what is this thing going to be? Could it be something, that is special? It turned out to be very special. I hope that this becomes a little bit of a trend with Bungie and Vicarious Visions and any developer out there that's trying to engage your community. If you put some real world, loot that's out there for people to go and hunt for, Anthem, I'm talking to you guys. That's actually who I'm really talking to here. Look at how well this worked Anthem, the developers of Anthem. And if you guys do this thing for your community, we'll love you forever. We will love you forever.
You know what reminds me of a little bit? All these like Pokemon Go type games, right? Where you're playing the game, but you're out there. It's like, it's kind of blending
blurring
in like
the lines between.
Yeah. I would love to see something like that.
Yeah.
From Anthem, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like almost like they have this like GPS cache finding thing. I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of it. Like people put things and then they
geocaching.
Geocaching, yep.
Hive mind.
Twice today.
What, you geocached today?
No. Twice today we've said the same thing at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you're friends.
Romance. Why don't you start saying the stuff we're saying?
Yeah.
You'll get there.
Okay.
I don't know, but you and I earlier we took a drink at the exact same time and put it down at the same time. Anyways, I digress.
Sort of
but it actually, people are speculating that it's actually not over because there was another code on the Valkyrie. So
yeah. So this might just be breadcrumbs.
Yep. So we'll see.
Yeah.
My guess is upstate Seattle. Geography.
Yeah.
Not that subject.
I mean, the only thing, and we were obviously a little hard on Bungie for a while during the life cycle Destiny 2. Part of me thought like this obviously was done by Vicarious Visions. They were probably the acting partner in making this thing happen because they're in that location. They're in upstate New York. Would this have happened with Bungie at being the sole content creator of the product? Hard to say, But we mentioned on last week's show a solid shout out to Bungie for allowing just actually letting go of some creative control to a third party like Vicarious Visions. And Vicarious Visions, I'm just going to give them the credit, right? They brought this into the game and the world of Destiny, the community that supports this game, and good for them, right? That's the kind of collaboration, that's the kind of content that we're going to rally behind and be excited for, and why we talk about it on our show. And now we're going to stop talking about it because we're going to move right on to the segment we like to call
The Buzz.
Zap.
All right, Mark, what do you have for us this week for the buzz?
Well, hey, St. 14 Project and chat, first of all, welcome. So this week I'd like to talk about an omnidirectional treadmill. I'm sure you guys, most of you saw Ready Player One, and you saw Wade Watts jump into his Jeep. Not his Jeep, it was a van down by the river. And he suddenly starts running on this treadmill, and then he like turns 90 degrees and he like runs again, like full tilt, right? And that's the actual brand, Infinidec. They used that treadmill in the movie. Now, so we watched a tested video. If you guys look up tested on YouTube, they do a lot of really great stuff. One of the guys, Adam Savage from the Mythbusters, it's basically his YouTube channel. They test out different technology. Very into VR. If you're looking into VR stuff, it's a great place to go. And they did a test on this Infinidec treadmill. It's not available to the public yet. It's still in testing, and it's capped right now at 8 miles per hour. So you can't go any faster than that on it. And basically,
just for our listeners, that's kind of like a brisk walk. Like it's not jogging by any means.
No, it's definitely not full tilt running like Wade Watts was doing in Ready Player One at all. Nowhere
8 miles
close.
an hour?
Yeah, 8 miles an hour. So the average human walks at like 3.
Yeah.
So it would be like, a long stride, like a really long stride.
I got short legs. So that would be that would be a full tilt run for me. I'm short. I'm under 5 feet. I'd be like booking it.
A sugar glider basically could not run this.
Well, and we'll get into some of the limitations of the technology today, which they did talk about in that tested video. But there's a reason why you probably wouldn't even want to go 8 miles an hour on this thing. Mark, please continue.
Yeah. So basically, at this point, it's imagine a 6 foot by 6 foot square, but they do have there's a band of metal that runs around it, like you would have on the edge of a treadmill, that basically limits the size to around. It's probably around more close to like 4 foot by 4 foot square. And then there's a circular handrail that runs around the entire thing in all directions. And you can see this handrail in virtual reality as well, so that if you lose your balance, you can see it through your VR goggles, digitally as well, so you can reach out and grab it. But what they were saying, Vern, reach out and grab it. Name your sex tape. But what they were saying is that 4 foot actually felt a little bit restrictive. Everything sounds bad now.
Yeah, because just imagine, like, actually being on a 4 foot by 4 foot square. And the way that the technology works is there's all these motors and actuators that whole round circle thing is just, it's kind of like a sensor trying to keep you in the middle, right? You're not actually supposed to be touching up against it. So as you get closer to that circle, the treadmill underneath you, the motors will move your physical body back to the center point. 4 by 4 probably isn't big enough. I mean, I would actually probably argue it needs to be more like 10 by 10. You can't get to the point where your feet are touching the edges of the treadmill at any point with it.
Right. And the way that it determines where your body mass is kind of awkward, right? There's something that goes on your shoes on each foot, and then you've got your hand controllers like normal, and then it tries to determine how much you're leaning by the sensors on your feet and then the things in your hand. And the real issue that there is, okay, imagine you're walking straight forward and then suddenly you stop and then you sidestep to the right. I mean, this is something you could really imagine doing, like in a shooter, right? You run up to, a corner, and then you want to like side strafe out and look to the right. That's a move that is almost impossible. Like he tried it, and the reason is because a lot of times when you're walking in real life in a room, you need to sidestep or pivot. And it's just not something that the technology even is capable of doing. So what they're saying, for a perfect experience, of course, the Star Trek nerds have figured this out, what it would take, right? The holodeck is a complete fictionally on the Star Trek Enterprise. Starship Enterprise. Man, I'm going to get flamed by some Star Trek peeps. But yeah, so on the Enterprise, they have the holodeck in this fictional world, and they're always speculating, how does this actually work? And what they were saying is basically it would probably be a bunch of omnidirectional treadmills in a bunch of circles all over the floor, so that like when you went to pivot and spin or step sideways, there's just treadmill after treadmill that can go in any direction that's underneath your feet, right? And that would be the only way that would actually work, because it would, you have to transfer your weight and just the way that you naturally move, right? So basically, this is limiting. And then, like you said, if they made it bigger, I think you could adjust to it. You could run on something that was larger and just understand there's certain ways of movement that aren't going to work right.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is,
you're not going to do a tuck and roll.
Exactly. And the problem with that is if they make a game that is not all VR and you're playing against people that are using a mouse and keyboard, they clearly have the advantage, right? All the stuff would have to be where if you were playing against others, they were all using the same technology and stuff that you are. And who knows how much this thing's going to cost, right? At this point, it's not even on the market. So
yeah, and they're not talking about too much with early dev anything. I think some of the early markets, right? Most university research centers will have like a VR lab, and I could see them maybe getting some access to this technology. There's probably something 5-10 years down the line where this maybe makes sense. I don't know that it's the solution for full immersive VR. It's just one of those things where, it's good to kind of walk and move around. But one of the things that I thought was a little bit difficult is it doesn't actually use your movement to, like your actual force, I should say. It uses your movement, your physical movement, but it doesn't use the force of walking to actually move the motors that the Infinideck, the omnidirectional treadmill, rely on. It's actually depending on an algorithm that detects your body position, and based on the change in your body position, it moves itself. And that, I mean, I'm sure that these guys have tried it both ways. There's treadmills that you can get on and get running with your own power. Like it doesn't have like a motored power source that does it. But they must have tried that and found that it just didn't work for this type of application.
Yeah.
Because they
abandoned it.
It's awful. Those are awful.
It's too much exercise for gamers.
Oh my God,
they just found that there was
pulls at your groin mark.
there's too much sweating. There's too much exercise. Actually, what they found was that the gamers got too attractive and didn't want to play the games anymore. That's what happened.
Wow.
Real life.
I mean, one thing that I did like about that is they did ask them, as far as lift, because you can definitely get treadmills. Pretty much come standard with being able to change your incline and everything like that. They didn't get too much into it, but he did say, it is definitely something that they're looking into incorporating, which that would be awesome. So then, you're running up a hill and, in VR, and you're actually running up a hill. Yeah. So, hey, we'll have the fittest gamers ever.
Oh, big time. Could you imagine?
Yep.
So there's another way that you could do it right now, right? Okay, you can get this thing where you pedal your bicycle to provide the power to keep your TV and your PlayStation on.
Right.
If you stop pedaling it, your PlayStation just shuts down, right? And it corrupts your data, and you have to start the whole game over now.
Yeah, that's horrible.
That's probably what happens.
And that's punishment.
That could happen, but no, that's really a thing. You could do that. And in the book for Ready Player One, right, he struggles with weight, and he actually talks of he sets up his VR rig to where it forces him to exercise a certain amount before logging into the Oasis, which I thought was kind of a cool idea. And so I would love to see this technology become a thing for gamers. I remember when the Wii came out, even it's much more comfortable to play the Wii while standing up and moving around and stuff. And I remember thinking, man, I hope this is the direction that games go, and then the Wii U came out and just totally tanked the whole business. But I think VR could get us there. Even if it was just getting us out of our chairs, even, and standing in a space for if that's the
I think
thing.
where it's going to work, and I think that the technology is right. The idea that you have motors on an x-axis and a y-axis that are actually able to simultaneously move the entire area of a floor, I think that's the right answer. I think, though, the ring has to go. They got to figure out a way that this ring isn't going to be present. The other thing is I think they need to make it the size of an average room where you're going to play video games and set this up. So maybe that's a 15 by 20 size room, and then it is the entire floor, right? The entire floor of that room has to be that way. And then if you put on the VR goggles, right, and you're in the middle of the room, no matter where you walk to, you never leave the middle of the room. You never know that, right? You never know that you're not leaving the middle of the room. You're walking towards your wall the whole time. But because the floor is moving, and you as the user, you can't tell because it's so seamless. You don't tell that the floor is moving. It's just acting like you keep gaining more floor. You never actually reach the wall. I think that's where it works. And where the elevation kind of comes in is, again, with really advanced setups, the idea would be that the floor itself is somewhat flexible, I would say. The material, maybe you use a technology of air pockets or something, where you actually blow up certain sections of the floor to give you the impression that now you're walking up an incline. Something kind of along those lines, I think, would potentially work for the best implementation of this kind of technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And imagine you're putting this if your room is not the right size, right? You could imagine maybe a booth, right, where instead of having to put it in a room that's specific to the size, you could have padded walls just in case anything happened, you trip and fall, you don't concuss yourself. So padded walls around so that you just kind of bounce off of that. And then if it was a booth designed like that, right, you could actually design it where you step up into the thing. And, you got 3 foot worth of steps, and then basically front to back, it could tilt at a certain, enough of an angle to actually make up and down elevations, but you would have your padded walls around it.
Yeah, there's got to be definitely some safety issues that allow you as the gamer the freedom, or really just the person, it doesn't have to be for games, just in a simulation, that you can fall and not hurt yourself. Because their answer, right, you were harnessed in. You wore this chastity belt that kind of kept you suspended a little bit, so you couldn't really fall, even if you tried. Well, that's kind of immersion breaking, right? The floor needs to be able to be shock absorbent enough that if you fall, A, you're not going to hurt yourself. B, you're not going to break your $900 Vive Pro that you just bought.
Well, the way that I saw that, especially in the movie where they were in the bungee situation, was, I mean, they were doing airborne stuff, and it was helping them stay airborne while doing it.
Wow.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that it is exciting technology. We talked a few episodes back about haptic feedback technology as part of the future. I'm much more interested in seeing haptic feedback come to VR and gaming in general than I necessarily am the omnidirectional movement piece, the treadmills that are coming out. I think both are going to be essential for full immersion, but one is going to require me to actually get up and move and exercise, and that in itself makes me less interested in the technology.
I mean, like, I've worked really hard on this beer gut that I have right now. I've got a lot invested time, and it's craft. This thing is craft.
Plus, when your heart rate gets up...
craft beer is what it is.
I know. We craft.
Execution, right? Execution in some of these games is just going to go down. It's going to decrease because your heart rate's up and you're out of breath and you're exhausted and you can't pull off the shot, you know?
That's true. We'll have to condition ourselves to this new way of gaming. As long as everyone else is playing the same way, I'm into it, right? If everybody's got the same limitations, that's fine. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move into our last segment, which we like to call
The Spotlight.
All right, so this week we are spotlighting an indie game called Runbow. This is a play on words like rainbow, Runbow. It's a game that Yuna and I got to play an early release of on the Switch. That doesn't mean that it's a brand new game, but it has never been released on the Nintendo Switch. And so the idea here was that, okay, how does this game play on the form factor, the experience, the controllers of the Switch? It's been a very popular game, actually. So it debuted in August of 2015. So not a particularly new game. It was one of the titles for the Wii U. It was made by a studio called 13AM Games. They're a studio out of Canada. This was their first launch title, and kudos to them. It got an 82 on Metacritic. As a small indie studio, only 15 people, and essentially, I mean, they got a highly reviewed game, very successful. Some of you might actually go back on your Xbox, and if you had Games with Gold, I'm the kind of player that I have Games with Gold, and I just, like, I'll download or buy, quote unquote, buy all the games with gold, regardless if I play them or not, because I don't want to lose them. Back in July of 2017, it was the Games with Gold offering. Runbow was. So you might actually have it. Check it out, see if you like it. But in particular, the reason why this game is now back, something that we're talking about, is because it's coming out for the Nintendo Switch. Hasn't been released yet. It's going to be sometime during second quarter of 2018. It's going to be $29.99. And the game is a kind of racing platformer party game. So the way that we did it at PAX, Yuna and I got to sit down on a couch with two other strangers. We all had the little Wii Joy-Cons. And you are all on the same screen of this platformer, running across, trying to race to an end goal. You're trying to trip up your opponents. You can kind of collect these power-ups, which change the map. But ultimately, the biggest change, which is constantly happening, is that the background color changes. It might be blue, it might be orange, it might be green. And throughout the race, it's going to swipe right to left and change the color. Well, the platforms you're standing on are also certain colors. So if you jump on a platform that's blue, and all of a sudden blue is the background color that's about to swipe in, you lose your platform and you're going to fall.
Yep, you go.
Yep, and you can fall to your death. And if you die, you're out. There's no coming back into a round. So you got to be kind of careful, but you also need to be aggressive because you're trying to get to the end. The other thing that you're able to do is you can grab power-ups, which are kind of like weapons, and you can kill the opponents, basically. So as everybody's racing to this goal, you can actually get to an opponent. If you have a certain power-up, you can cause damage to them and cause them to be removed from the race. There were some cool things that you could do with the map, too. Inverting the map, changing, rotating start to finish, different things like that. So the switching start to finish is like, okay, I'm in the lead. I'm almost to get to the end. And whoever's in last, they can actually swap it. And now they're in first place because they're headed the opposite direction. Different things like that from a timing perspective. So we really enjoyed this game. They're working.
Yeah, it was so much fun.
Yeah, so let's actually go there. You know, what were some of your impressions when we played Runbow at PAX East?
So my first impression was like, man, my kid is gonna love this. I need to get this for her for the Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I would say it was skillful enough that I didn't win a lot, but it was easy enough that concept-wise, while the concept is really cool and really unique and interesting, it's also simple enough to be able to pick up rather quickly.
Right. Yeah, it was colorful, it was playful, cartoony, fun. I mean, the first thing that I felt when we waited in line to sit and play this game that's been out since 2015, remember, right? We waited to get to play this at PAX East. And when we finished the round and we got up, I immediately felt like I want to play this again. I want to play another round.
I want to play another round.
You know, because there's something about, we play a lot of online video games. We're all spread out across the country. We're great friends that love this, but when you're sitting next to somebody in a competitive game like that, a platformer, everybody's looking at the same screen. I mean, we don't play local co-op games near as much like we used to, growing up. That was what it was. We didn't have online play. And so some of the novelty, I think, of this game was sitting next to each other on the couch. The Switch is going to be perfect for this. You got 2 Joy-Cons, you hand one to your friend, and you play a few rounds of this platformer, and you're jabbing them, you're telling them, you're screwing them over in the game and laughing and having a great time. That's what we did at PAX East when we were on the couch. So, Mark, unfortunately, that was a day that you were draining various fluids from all the orifices in your body. I said it. So Mark was unable to experience Runbow. But when this launches on the Switch, all of us have Switches. I need to double check and see if they have online co-op. But it is a pretty fun game, and I'm happy that this indie studio, 13 AM Games, had the success that they had. I want to give them a quick plug. They have a new game that's coming out called Double Cross. Once we're able to get some beta keys, some early keys for that, we'll do a review as well of that product. If they put in the same amount of heart and deliver the same type of product that they did as Runbow, I think that they're going to have another hit on their hands like they did the first time around. So kudos to you, 13A Games. It was great to play your game at PAX East, and we wish you success in the future. Check them out. It's coming out on the Switch Q2 of 2018, $29.99. All right, last segment of the night. We're going to go to our last lives, starting with Yuna.
Okay. Last live this week goes to everyone in chat. We actually had quite a few people pop in at the last minute. So we got Chris, and we have Des, and we have Elmer Fudd Games, who I don't think I've seen in chat before. So hi. Thanks for checking us out, and, always going back to LB and Jez was in chat. So we had quite a lot of people in chat, and Joe was in chat. So it's nice to see our friends talking to us during the show.
Awesome. Welcome, chat. You guys are the best. All right, Mark Square, what's your last life?
We did just hear in chat that the Bungie versus DCP match did not go the way Bungie did not win. DCP won. DCP plays more games. I mean, Destiny Community Podcast, that's a lot of experience.
Seasoned
a lot of hours in the game.
Quality.
Yeah. So, shout out to my buddy Dylan over at Fashion Show Clan that let me into that clan, and lost at Crucible, which is what I do as well. So we'll lick our wounds and continue on. Kudos to just anybody in the Destiny community that is getting together to play these private matches. Also, shout out to Gray for coming up with that idea, the Crucible podcast showdown. So now I'm looking forward to it more than ever, to be honest with you. Yes. I wasn't too into Destiny until recently again, but I'm into it. I'm happy about it.
And he's right back. All right. My last life is going to go to Spearhead Games. They had a very big day this past week. A game that we featured a few episodes back, Omen Sight, launched successfully. You can get it on Steam right now, 20% off. It was like $16, $17. I picked it up last night. I'm going to download it. I haven't had a chance to jump in and play it, but it's on my list to play this weekend. Now that the full game is really out and people can play it, the early reviews are saying that the execution, the art style, the voice acting, the story is all very compelling. One little knock on it, which I'm going to be sensitive to, is that it feels a little repetitive. And remember, in the game, you go play back through the same day over and over and over again as you unlock more information in this murder mystery. So I'm curious to see if it does get a little bit on the redundant side. I've heard it from some of the early reviews that that's a concern. And we'll see how that kind of works out for the life cycle of the game. We certainly would like to see Spearhead Games be successful with this product launch. So go check them out. You know, I'll certainly reach out to me after I've had some more time in the game and see what it's like. People are streaming it on Twitch right now, so you can go and check out some of the gameplay. But congrats to them on a successful launch. They do have a community on Discord that we're a part of. Feel free to join out and reach out to them. They're very engaging, very friendly people. And that will wrap up this episode of Grenades and Horseshoes. Thank you, everybody in the chat that hung out with us. And just like every week, we'll have our producer, Jelly, take us out. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you can't catch the live show, then you can find the replays on the Grenades and Horseshoes YouTube channel. If you'd like to stay connected to the community during the week, you can reach us at our show Twitter handle, @G&H Show, or at our individual handles, @MarkSquare_, @GreyGhost2E, and @Yuna. We're also open to any ideas you may have or seeing any clips that you would like to send in. Please send the feedback to gnhfeedback@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.